Nick Wright joining us live, co-host First Things First. It's a little weird, but I do think we do this all the time. Is that Julian Edelman came on yesterday and he said, yeah, Bill, we used to just screw around in September because every team Bill thought had a new identity and we would experiment. And I think we look at Cincinnati and go, they're 2-3. And I'm like, no. That's the one team that could go into Kansas City and go situational football and on some days can match the Chiefs. So is there anything here that bothered you?
Oh, well, I hate to start with the negative, but since you asked that, because I did think this was a pretty outstanding herd hierarchy, let me just pose a counterpoint to you, because you have Cincinnati at 10 saying they're going to beat Seattle.
Right.
Flip side is they lose to Seattle. The Ravens beat the Titans, and all of a sudden it's 4-2 Baltimore, 2-4 Cincinnati.
True.
With Cincinnati's next two coming against San Francisco and Buffalo.
Yeah.
So I don't think they turned their season around by beating the Cardinals. I think they can turn their season around by beating the Seahawks, but the Seahawks coming off a bye, healthier than they've been all year since week 1, with arguably the best pair of corners in the NFL in Weatherspoon and Woolen. I think that could be a really tough game for Cincinnati. I think you're a little too high on the Justin Herbert Chargers supply. He's excellent. The rest of the team is not. I would probably slide Dallas in there. But where I do want to give you credit, Colin, is you seem to be the only person in America other than me that will give the Jaguars the credit they deserve and give Trevor Lawrence the credit they deserve. Everyone's like, oh, my goodness, Buffalo was jet-lagged. Well, show up earlier then. The idea that Jacksonville had some massive edge because they're the first team in NFL history to have to play multiple international games is crazy. And that game was not even as close as the final score suggests. And not shockingly, Josh Allen was, after a wonderful game against Miami, was not great in this game. It was certainly in the first 55 minutes against the Jags. And last herd hierarchy question I have for you. Colin, your top three. So the Eagles, the last team to beat them was, let me check, it was the Chiefs. And the Niners, the last team to beat them when their quarterback didn't get knocked out of the game was, that was the Chiefs as well.
Yeah.
So you maybe could put the Chiefs at number 1. I mean, you kind of want to. I know you do, but it's fine. 2 is fine for now.
Yeah, I think Philadelphia and I would just say this. Kansas City at the trade deadline, I wouldn't be shocked if Brett Veach goes and gets a little veteran receiver help. But nonetheless, Kansas City's defense, good now, will only get better like Seattle's because it's full of kids. I do want to talk about this, though, is that the Brock Purdy thing is fascinating. So J-Mac and I got into this yesterday, and I've said, I think he's good. I've never seen him without a brilliant coach and a stacked roster. He looks good to me. He's accurate. He sees it. He's like C.J. Stroud. Sees it, lets it rip, ball lands where it should. Tua sees it, lets it rip, ball lands where it should. Well, Tua's not a great athlete. C.J. Stroud's not running around. Like, can we acknowledge this? Is that we need years to figure out what players are. And I know you've pushed back on Purdy, but in that offense, they don't need Steph Curry. They need Chris Paul, and he is a perfect fit for that offense.
Well, all right, so a few things here. One, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but Purdy, Tua, Stroud, what they all have in common, all their head coaches or offensive coordinators are Shanahan system guys. It's Shanahan himself. It's Mike McDaniel, his offensive coordinator. And then it's Bobby Slowick in Houston, who D'Amico brought over, same system. So I do see some similarities there. I actually I think of those three guys, the one with the highest upside is probably Stroud.
Yeah.
Here is the thing. You used the Chris Paul comparison. And Chris Broussard has used the John Stockton comparison, similar. And people get mad at me. Maybe he's Mario Chalmers, though. It's like, hey, wins a lot of games. Hey, might show up in the finals. But is that because of him?
Yeah.
Or is that because of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Eric Spoelstra, Chris Bosh? I don't know. But he is the point guard. He is distributing. Here, both of these things can be true. I was wildly impressed by what Brock Purdy did on Sunday. It was, to me, the most impressive game because even if Dallas's defense was a touch overrated by me, it is still an excellent defense. He made some high-level throws. I was very impressed. I thought there were 5 throws he made. I said, damn, that's a really good throw. Also, he has in his career trailed in the fourth quarter for less than 3 minutes. And me wanting to see him in those spots is a fair ask. And this is where people will say, Colin, I'm being unfair to Brock Purdy. I don't think it's unfair. I think it's honest. My opinion on how good Brock Purdy actually is absolutely colored by seeing Jimmy Garoppolo be awful immediately the moment he leaves Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Leads the league in picks the moment he leaves Kyle Shanahan, and I had to deal with people yelling at me about Jimmy Garoppolo for years. Same offense, same idea. Now, Purdy has not made the mistakes or made some of the boneheaded plays that Jimmy made. But I am right now, I think both of these things can be true. Brock Purdy has been very impressive, and Brock Purdy also is the 49ers' weakest link. Now, you might say that's because they have no weak links, and maybe that's true. But if they don't make the Super Bowl, I think it will be because they don't get enough out of the quarterback position. That's yet to be seen. And one last thing on Purdy. And listen, Colin, I have a much smaller microphone, literally and figuratively, on the show, like in the medium than you do. So you have a big microphone right on the desk. I need someone with your platform to help push back against this. The Brock Purdy MVP stuff that train can never leave the station. I don't have a lot of rules for league MVPs, but one of them is this. If you're not one of your team's 5 MVPs, you can't be the MVP of the league. If no one would say you're one of the 5 best players on your own team, you can't get the award for the best player in the league. That's what I would ask, please.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I had a similar feeling about Westbrook, but Westbrook's a more dynamic player than Purdy, but I always had the same argument. You got to make like teammates better to be the best player and most valuable in the league. Okay, so my dad used to have a saying, my late father, lubricate, don't agitate. People will make employment decisions mostly when you're not in the room. Have allies. In good times, be humble. In bad times, be an ally. Here's Mac Jones' problem. Yes, he had a very good rookie year.
Oh.
He went outside the building, ticked off all the coaches. So he has no allies there. He cheap shots. I was told he was confronted by a Patriot O-lineman last year in the building. Nobody rallied around him when he cheap shotted Sauce Gardner. He appears to pout during games. He has not elevated Juju Smith-Schuster. Quarterbacks elevate receivers, not vice versa. And he's not winning and looks bad. He is not lubricated anything in this organization. He's been a brat.
That's right.
I think it's time to move off him. If he'd have struggled, but he had won curried favor with the coaches, I think you give him another year. But I think with the first-round pick, I'd probably go quarterback. Is that unfair?
I have to. No, it would be ridiculous not to, especially because they're barreling towards, at best the 8th pick of the draft and maybe the 3rd or 4th pick of the draft.
Right.
I mean, this is a brutal team, and the lack of talent is on Belichick. The fact that Mac Jones has created 5 touchdowns for the Patriots and 4 for the opposition, that's on Mac. And your point is well taken, and it crosses sports. The best people are awesome at what they do and awesome people. But you can get away with being awesome at what you do and a jerk. We all know a lot of people like that. You can also, for a time, get away with stinking at what you do, but everyone loves you. You can't be bad and unlikable. That is, everybody knows it. You will be the first. And by the way, that I think is one of the reasons, and I know this isn't the point you're making, but one of the reasons that New England media seems to be ready to fire Bill Belichick less than 5 years removed from him hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in a Super Bowl. They held the league's highest scoring offense to 3 points because of a defensive masterpiece. is because he is now bad and he's always been unlikable for them. Like the knives are sharpened in a way for Bill they wouldn't have been if he maybe had a finer or softer touch with some of the local press. But now they have been waiting for a chance, and he's giving it to them now. Because right now, the team is bereft of talent on the offensive side of the ball. He picks the players, and they appear to be poorly coached. He's the coach, and they don't appear to have a great coaching staff, but he's filled that out with friends and family. And so I think for the Patriots, they are definitely going to be in the quarterback market. And I do wonder if in this offseason they might be in the coach market.
By the way, you were ahead of most on Dak Prescott. 2 to 2.5 minutes left. He has been terrible trailing this year. Most quarterbacks outside of Mahomes aren't as good trailing. But I do think it's very fair to say this. He had 5 game-winning drives, come from behind wins, that kind of stuff in his rookie season. He's had 5 the last 5 years. The minute you pay a quarterback, he has fewer weapons. Look at Mahomes' receiving core. Look at Josh Allen's receiving core. Is that when you've paid Dak, you've reduced his weapons, and you are left with a C-plus quarterback. You've been on that for years, have you not?
And by the way, I have been on that for years. I also have been on that I don't trust Mike McCarthy for years, which is why it made perfect sense for me to pick the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl this year. I'm not saying it made a lot of sense, but when I did it on your podcast, actually, is where I debuted it. There was a little voice in my head like, Nick, you really going to do this, the Dak McCarthy combo? I'm like, they're going to do it. I don't right now feel as confident about that. You're right, Colin. Here's the thing. I don't even want to say modern NFL. Last decade in the NFL, 20 teams have made the Super Bowl, obviously, last 10 Super Bowls. 9 of them have been quarterbacks on a rookie contract. The other 11 Super Bowls that have been made, 5 by Brady, 2 by Peyton, 1 by Patrick, post-rookie contract, and then what you're hoping for Dak. The good, not great quarterback who has the career year. Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, and Jimmy Garoppolo, right? That's the path. If Dak can't at least this year make it to round 3 of the postseason, then you do have to ask yourself, if he is good, I think he's top 10 quarterback, but if he is not able with this roster to elevate, then are we better off starting the quarterback contract clock over? Because he's only going to get more expensive, and Mike is about to get paid. The roster is going to get less talented, not more talented, over the next couple years, and so that's why this year is so critical for Dak. Because if you can't do it right now, what makes you think you can do it next year? What makes you think you can do it the year after? And that is where you would ask yourself, if right now we have a B-plus quarterback, would we be better off with a B-minus quarterback but 3 additional excellent players if the B-plus quarterback can't be an A-minus guy in the most critical moments?
Nick Wright, first things first. Good seeing you, buddy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.